Hey there, Assalamualaikum everybody. Hope you guys are doing good. Now, this video is inspired by me sitting at Tekaf, and I've been talking about this for the last 1 year. I don't know if you guys seen my videos of me traveling the world. I've been to a lot of Muslim countries, and the question really was about Hijrah. Hijrah is when you leave a country to another country for Islamic needs, or just in general for a better lifestyle, in perspective to the Akhirah, not to the dunya, but to the Akhirah. Um, so this question. I was looking for an answer from ulama. A lot of the compassionate imams were, giving all these different answers, but I found an answer which I think is a more honest answer and a more blunt answer, and it covers a lot of topics. So, without any further ado, let's get this video started.
The next question from Naveed Ahmed, an Afghan immigrant living in Canada. I have a question about living in a non-Muslim country. I live in Brampton, Canada, where I can practice Islam in the best way.
Brother, shout out to Brampton. The man in Brampton, whoever this guy is, he asked the question. Brampton's like a brown town city of like GTA, Ontario, close to where I'm from.
We have mosques nearby, and I have all the freedom in terms of clothing and practicing Islam. Do I still have to make hijrah to a Muslim country? My father, being a good follower of Islam, recommends me to take a decision to make hijrah to a Muslim country. I would appreciate to get a reply from you. A similar question is posed by Saad Khan, Mississauga, Canada. In your talks, you have emphasized not to migrate to non-Muslim countries like North America. As I was residing in the Middle East, I couldn't continue because no one is allowed to stay there because of citizenship. In Pakistan, there is no Sharia law. So is it permissible for us to migrate in such a situation to a non-Muslim country where our life is safe and we can practice our religion? A similar question is posed by Muhammad Shariful Islam from Bangladesh. Is it permissible to move from one Muslim country to another non-Muslim country for a better life? One more similar question by Abdul Mannan residing in Ireland. It's come on the Facebook just now. Dr. Zakir Naik, we love you for the sake of Allah. My question is, what is the legal point of view of Muslims staying in non-Muslim country? Question asked by these four brothers.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna add another point in here. There's a lot of people who are talking about this, especially within like the religious brothers and religious families communities across the Western world. A lot of people are talking about this right now because of all the promotion that's happening, the amount of fashahat that are being promoted. I'm gonna make another video. Maybe I won't make that video because I think that would be a little too much of a push. But there's a discussion in regards to this.
And many such similar questions have come regarding Muslims staying in a non-Muslim country. This can be divided into two types. A Muslim which is born in a non-Muslim country, what he has to do, and a Muslim who migrates from a Muslim country to a non-Muslim country. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly mentions that and gives us guidance regarding this topic. Allah says in Surah Nisa chapter number 4, verse number 97, when the angels of death come to take the soul of the person who has died in sin against his soul and asks him, what is your state? And he replies that we have lived in oppression on this earth. Our state was very bad, oppressed. Then the angel replies that the earth of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was spacious enough for you to migrate from the evil. And for such people, Allah continues, their abode is hell, a refuge of evil. And this verse was revealed in context in Muslims living in non-Muslim countries. This verse, if you read the Nuzul Quran, and people write in bracket, mentioning for the Muslim living in non-Muslim country. It says that when the angel of death comes to take the soul of the person who has died in sin against the soul and asks them, what is your state? They reply, we lived in oppression on this earth. And the reply is that the earth of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was spacious for you to move away from evil. That means the world of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so big that if you are living in a space where there is oppression, where there is shirk, where there is activity which is un-Islamic, you have to migrate. And if you do not,
I'm sorry. The way he said it, he's like, "What are you doing, bro? Yalla, get out of the country."
Allah says your abode is hellfire, a refuge which is evil. The next verse says in Surah Nisa chapter 4 verse number 98, as to those who are in oppression, and men and women and children who don't have the power or do not have the facility to migrate. Verse number 99 says, Allah will forgive them. Verse number 100 says that as to those who sacrifice their home and leave their land, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them many a refuge in the world.
Subhanallah.
And if the person dies as a refugee away from his home, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward him. Here Allah is talking about those who do Hijrah for the sake of Allah and His Rasul. With those who leave their home for the sake of Allah and His Rasul and take refuge. The land is very big. He'll find many refuge. And if he dies away from his home as a refugee for the sake of Allah and His Rasul, Allah will surely reward him. So from this verse, all the scholars, they agree that if a person is living in a non-Muslim land, there can be three options. Number one option is that he cannot practice his deen freely. Practicing deen hidingly is not acceptable. If you cannot practice your deen freely and you cannot call yourselves freely Muslims, then it becomes compulsory for you to migrate.
So, really detailed point here, because a lot of us are professionals, white collar, blue collar, whatever. We work in companies, blah blah blah. If you cannot freely and not feel any form of like an essence of like, I'm gonna be judged or something like that. If you cannot go and pray like, with fear purity, or full confidence, if you can't go pray, and if you can't, take Eid off, and if you can't talk about religion openly, it is like this is what he's talking about. Now, a lot of us be like, oh yeah, there's a prayer room or thing like that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about if you bring up the topic about God and you say Allah, and you zikr of Allah, and you do a zikr of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so you sit there and do Allahu Allahu. No, I'm saying talk about when you praise the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you talk good about the Prophet. Do you feel some sense of oh, am I being judged? That is what he's talking about, and that, let's be honest, it's in every single workplace, not just against Islam, but in essence about every single religion.
Compulsory. Further, if you are living in a country where you cannot practice your deen freely, cannot call yourself Muslims, cannot do your faraiz, cannot stay away from the haram, in a non-Muslim country, it becomes fard for you to migrate. Number two, if you can practice your deen very freely, and there is no compulsion on you, you can do all the faraiz, you can stay away from all the haram, then migrating becomes mustahab but not a fard. But there it is mustahab, based on the verse of the Quran. So the scholars say, if you are living in a non-Muslim land where you can call yourself Muslim freely, practice your deen, there is no harassment at all, then migration becomes mustahab but not a fard. And for those people who are weak and do not have the means to migrate, who are oppressed, women, children, don't have the power, don't have the means, for them, if they continue to stay, Allah will forgive them. It is permissible. So these are the three things. Now, coming to the question of can a Muslim migrate from a Muslim country to non-Muslim, that is another question. All the scholars unanimously agree, those who are on the Quran and Sunnah. I know some scholars say allowed, especially if you go to Western scholars, they say no problem. To migrate from a Muslim country to a non-Muslim country, it is haram unless it be for education or for the purpose of dawah.
I hope that clarifies for some of you guys, because I know there's so many people from like Eastern worlds, like we're talking Middle East, Asia, that want to come to a Western country, but they just don't understand. And this is to clarify for you to understand. What are you doing? You know? So Kat, I don't want to get into too much details. I let Sheikh himself kind of answer. I think he answers it pretty well.
For education purpose, you go, you acquire education, come back, no problem. Or if you go there not as a part-time da'i, as a full-time da'i to deliver the message, then the scholars say it's permissible. But if you just shift from Muslim land to a non-Muslim land for a better living, as the questioner posed, it is not permitted at all. And I know there are millions of Muslims who have migrated from Muslim countries, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, to Western countries, USA, Canada, European countries, only basically for a better living. They talk about education, so education will have to come back.
Yeah.
The main purpose is for a better.
You know, I'm just gonna put one more thing out there. I know I'm cutting up. May Allah bless my mother. So she, you know, subhanAllah, she from the beginning of like when we were like very little, she used to say this, and like I don't think she knew she was saying it from a religious perspective, but she was just saying it that I've only brought you to this country for education, only for education. That's it. And then remember, this you're only into this country for education, and then care. Alhamdulillah, you know, may Allah bless my mom.
Better living because they can earn more money. This is totally prohibited. Migrating from a Muslim country to a non-Muslim country for a better living is prohibited. If you are born in a non-Muslim country, then the options are three. If you can not practice your deen freely, it becomes compulsory to migrate. If you can practice your deen freely, it is mustahab to migrate, not a fard. I know there are many Muslims born in non-Muslim countries. A large percentage of the Muslim Ummah are living in non-Muslim countries. If they are born there and if they can practice their deen freely, according to me, nowadays there are very few countries in the world, non-Muslim countries in the world, where you can actually practice very freely. And there are also those countries that will not be to a great extent. And I would agree that amongst the Western countries that are available, Canada would be better than the other Western countries. Canada is much better than USA, is much better than other Western countries in terms for a Muslim to live, because at present you have a Prime Minister, that is Trudeau, who has more care for humanity and who really cares.
But I don't know about who Trudeau. Okay, I'm not promoting Trudeau. I don't know.
For giving equal rights to human beings, unlike the other Prime Minister of other Western countries like France or USA, etc. So amongst the Western countries, the best of the worst countries would be Canada. But coming to the question, what is the reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has requested you to migrate? What is the reason? And our beloved Prophet said, it's mentioned in the Sahih Hadith of Abu Dawud, volume number 3, Hadith number 2645. And this Hadith is mentioned Sahih by Albani. The Prophet said, I disown those Muslims who live amongst the mushrikeen. I disown those Muslims who live amongst the idolaters. It's a Sahih Hadith. The Prophet is disowning all the Muslims who live among the mushrikeen. The reason is two. Number one is a Muslim may not be able to practice Islam in totality. They may be, he can follow some aspects of deen. He cannot freely say he's a Muslim, he cannot freely offer salah, etc. And the second is, the associated factors of that environment is such that it prevents you from doing the sunnah and the faraiz and takes you closer to the haram activities. Let me give you a better explanation. There are very few non-Muslim countries that really you can be proud to be Muslims. And in those countries also certain areas, not throughout the country. Secondly, one thing you have to understand that almost all the Western countries, the atmosphere is not very convenient for the Islamic lifestyle. Number one, in almost all the Western countries, there is obscenity. The obscenity is coming on your face. There is alcoholism, there is drug addiction, there is prostitution, and the big associated factor is riba. Most of the countries, most of the places, you get involved in riba. It's difficult for you to stay away from riba. What you have to realize, some people may argue that, okay, there's obscenity even in Muslim countries. I agree with you. There are. But the levels differ.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You go to a Muslim country, I don't know of any Muslim country in the world which is as close as American obscenity, as close as Canada as obscenity. Not at all. Yes, there may be. It may be haram, but the level is less. And in certain non-Muslim countries, which are not the Western countries, the obscenity is less, depending on.
Now, on here, I want to say one thing. There's a lot of people I've met over the last 2 years who said to me, "Oh no, Muslim countries are more worse than these Western countries. The Muslims in the West, in the Eastern countries are worse." Let me break this down for you. And they usually quote things like they have girlfriends and boyfriends, they have drugs, and they have intimacy. Now, hear me out on this. Completely hear me out on this. Let's break this down. If you do the research and you read the research from the Western perspective on Muslims, back, let's say, 10 years ago, it said drugs were at 48%, both guys and girls, okay? Almost, you can say maybe plus or minus 2 or 3%, 40%. Intimacy before marriage, 50%. Was it drugs and there was intimacy? Alcohol, again, it was something like 40%. Smoking was about 38, 40%. I've quoted these researches before in my YouTube channel. You could go on my old videos, you can see it. It's done by a Muslim professor in America, okay? Now, okay, fine. Amma, you bring up this point. Let me bring up the second point. Your level of haram in the West is much higher. Much higher. Let me explain. So first thing, there's a parity, there's a massive parity. The Muslim community who is religious in the West are very religious. It's true. I have to agree to that. They're very on their deen. They try their best to stay on top of everything. That, but I'll be honest with you, is like 1 or 2%. Just say here, think about it. Think about your high school. How many of your high school friends do you know that pray full 5 times a day? If you're watching this video, I think you're religious. To a certain point, you were watching how to make halal income. How many people in your family that you know are taking riba-based loans? Now is it breaking down to you? You are that 1 or 2%, and that's why you think within your bubble, with your small bubble of friends, that Western countries have a community where it's big, where it's religious. No. Let's talk about second thing. When I was in Pakistan, me and my brother went to a upper class wedding. Okay. And we were there, and my brother made a notice to me and said, "Bro, look, there's not a lot of the sisters here are wearing the hijab. This is a Muslim country." And I noted to him, I said, maybe not a lot of the sisters here are wearing the hijab, but I assure you that none of them have ever even probably shaken hands with a non-mahram man. I'm like, I assure you, go approach one and they're gonna have a freak out moment. Come to a Western country, even sisters, may Allah forgive me if I'm saying, I'm now doing some botan, but even brothers, I'll say brothers and sisters who look to be very religious, I know vividly. I'm talking about Hafiz al-Quran. I'm talking about sons of imams are deep inside drugs, zina, and all these other things. I remember, okay, I'm not gonna go further than this. May Allah forgive those brothers and sisters. May Allah forgive me if I'm saying something out of the ordinary. So you gotta think about these things. If you're in that bubble of 2-3% of super religious community in the West, yeah, you're that percentage. You're not seeing the other side. Alhamdulillah, because I have the chance to be a leader within the community, I get to see both sides, and it's not what you think. There's a reason why my channel talks about halal income, and there's a few other big brothers who have been making halal income channels for about 8 years, and their channels are not going above 50,000 subscribers. May Allah bless those brothers. They're doing good work. Why? You ever think that? And these are English speaking. But if you just go across the world, halal income based channels or just income based channels, finance based channels have 100, 200,000 subscribers. And usually the question is this halal? Okay, so we're going to get back into this.
What you have to realize that in the Western country, it is coming at your face, glaring. The moment you walk out, you see billboards of ladies which are scantily dressed, which are dressed with obscene clothes. Difficult. In a Muslim country you may find, but not as much as what you find in the Western countries. So there is no comparison at all. So imagine when you walk, you have to lower your gaze. How can you live? I know there are many Muslims living in Western countries, and I've been to Western countries a lot. I've traveled a lot to America, I've traveled a lot to USA, to Canada, to Western countries. I go in my talk. And there are situations where some of the Muslims come and tell me, okay, when I came to the Western country, I became more Islamic. Mm-hmm. Possible? Mm-hmm. That is, yes, I agree with possible. But that's small possibility. The chances of a person, a Muslim, going away from his deen is more in the Western countries than in the other parts of the world. Mm-hmm. More in a Western country than a Muslim country. Mm-hmm. So what you have to understand, that there are possibilities that a person may go from Pakistan to America and become more practicing, may start reading Quran, may start offering salah, but the percentage is very small. For example, because of Salman Rushdie, he wrote the book, The Satanic Verses, there are thousands of non-Muslims accepted Islam. That does not mean what Salman Rushdie did is right. What Salman Rushdie did is to be condemned. That's the different question, that even though it is wrong, in that wrong thing, it has its own benefits. The majority people that go to the Western country, they go away from the deen. According to the PEW report, and the PEW report, the Pew report is supposed to be authentic, done by non-Muslims, it says that in USA, 25% of the Muslims born in Muslim family, they leave their religion every year.
Oh, subhanallah.
Imagine, 25% of the Muslims born in a Muslim family every year leave their deen. But
here, let me, and I know I'm cutting this off. This is one thing. I try to make this as a commentary too, so you guys can understand. I have felt this from a real perspective because I went to a few of my friends' families and stuff. They found out, he's moved to Saudi, and he's doing some religious stuff, and he's not in riba and all this stuff, right? So, the parents would love talking to me. Alhamdulillah, may Allah bless me for the respect and izzah. And their parents would always say this to me, like something along these lines, that I don't know as much religion as my forefathers knew, and I'm scared my kid doesn't know even 5% of that, or 10% of that, or 15 or 25% of that, and I'm scared that his kids won't even be on deen. And so I'm telling you guys that this is actually a vivid thing. Think about it yourself. If you're not the religious community, if you're the religious community, you're more religious than your father. That's fine. But if you're not from the religious community, think about the guys who moved to, and this is majority. Think about those guys, the other guys who are not coming to the mosque and praying. Think about their father that came, or his father maybe had prayed Jummah. Think about the kid. Is the kid even praying Jummah? Is the kid justifying other sins across that's happening to him? And so then, what will happen to his kids?
the good part of it is equal number of people even come close, even accept Islam. So the number of Muslims in USA remains approximately same.
Subhanallah, this brings up another story. So I was at the mosque. I'm sorry if my commentary is annoying, but I was at the mosque and I was talking to a brother. I was like, look at how many Muslims are like not fully practicing and this and that. And he said this one beautiful thing to me. Just brought me memory. Sheikh is saying what Dr. Zakir Naik is saying, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need us. Allah does not need us. He's not in need of us. If we stop practicing and if we start acting away from the deen, He will bring to replace us. And subhanAllah, He says, He's saying, if we're being replaced, it's true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring people to replace us. That's why you see so many reverts coming to Islam. The reverts go into deep depression or deep issues in life, and deep mental issues or physical, or sometimes where they start looking for God and start looking for answers, and that's when they come to religion. Whereas we are losing it from our generation who were born into Islam. That's what I mean, who were born into Islam. But for me, we are even the brothers who are converting to Islam or reverting to Islam. May Allah bless you guys.
The number leaving and number coming is same. That's the reason the number of Muslims approximately, different statistics say in a population of about 350 million people in USA, the Muslims, some say 4 million, some say 5 million, some say 3 million, some say 2 million. It is approximately 1%, but surely not more than 2%. It is close to 1%, 3 million. Imagine 25% every year leave their deen. That means you're playing with fire. I know so many of the duats who lived in USA, got their citizenship, got their green card, but they came back because they couldn't risk their family. I know many people tell me, because when we go to USA, when we go to Canada, there is a Muslim community center. The moment a person goes away from his country or goes away from the people of like-minded and he stays in a minority, there are possibilities that you make your own community. But that's a very small possibility. I have traveled to USA so many times. I have gone to many conferences. What you have to realize that what you see is just the outside world. I know many of the good dais whose children have got into drug addiction.
So whose children I was just talking about that. Yes, it's true.
Have got into adultery. Into alcoholism. You can't stop it. It is coming on you. Yes, I know even in Muslim countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, people are involved in all these evils, but the percentage is less. For the questioner to say that there is no Sharia followed in Pakistan as though Sharia is followed in Canada, it's totally wrong. Between Canada and Pakistan, Pakistan will be 1,000 times better than Canada. I know there are evil practices. in Pakistan, in Bangladesh. But yet, it is 1,000 times better than a non-Muslim country.
I'll tell you another thing. Why, when we look at the Eastern countries, like this being from the Middle East or from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and we see sin in those countries, we find it to be a very oh my god moment. It's because we have this holy horse that we put these countries on. Or when you see a guy with the beard, or you see a sister with niqab or hijab, we put them in a holy horse, like this high point or in a holy perspective. So when they do even the smallest sin, or when they even do the smallest thing, for us it's like, oh, look at this, men in beard are bad because they lie. Habibi, how many times the men without beard have lied throughout, thin and thick, subhanallah. Humans are humans. They're gonna lie. They're gonna do sins. Everybody's gonna do sins. But it's about percentages. It's about understanding ratio wise and data, right? That this is what we're talking about. If you're an intellectual, think about data, think about perspectives. So when we see it in Pakistan, Bangladesh, in Morocco and Saudi, in Egypt, we think about, oh my god, how's there a concert happening here? It's a Muslim country. Every single day there's a zina rape filled concert that happens in the West. Every single day in those same concerts, there's drugs. Every single day, this is happening. There might be one or two major conferences that happen. In the West, there's one happening almost every single day or almost every single week, to the least. And every single day, there's pubs open. So let's talk about it, right? And this is why that's the thing. We need to stop putting these places into a holy horse. Just take them as another country and then break them down like that, and you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, there's like this area within Pakistan or in Bangladesh where there's a little bit of prostitution. Okay, there's prostitution every single place in the West, everywhere, everywhere. Even in the most religious communities in the West to the most non-religious communities in the West, there's prostitution. So, cat, big point.
With all the problems, yes, only way the non-Muslim country can be better is you may get more money, you may get more luxury,
Yeah.
you may be able to drive a Mercedes car, but you're a very bad businessman. This is only for few years. You live in this world for how long? On average for about 70, 75 years. You may die at the age of 10, 20, at the age of 90, average 70 years. But what will happen in the Akhirah?
Yeah.
In the Akhirah, you're sacrificing your luxury.
Yeah.
If you take pains here and sacrifice your luxury here, in Akhirah, you'll go in Jannah.
Yeah.
So I have, alhamdulillah, prevented thousands of Muslims from Pakistan.
I love how you said alhamdulillah. It's an achievement. Sheikh, I think I'm on the same achievement, huh?
From Bangladesh to migrate to America and to Canada and USA. Alhamdulillah, thousands of them. So migrating is out of the question. If you are born, then is the question migrating is further or not. But you migrating from a Muslim country to a non-Muslim country for a better living is totally prohibited. Even though it may be a country like Canada, it may be better than the other country.
You see what he's saying? He's broken it down. If you're Muslim born in a non-Muslim country, then what the situation? If you're Muslim born in a non-Muslim country, and then you try to come here, what the situation is, and if you're a non-Muslim born in a non-Muslim country, what the situation is. He's given three perspectives. So try to understand the three perspectives. He's not saying that it's okay if you came here and stayed. No, he's saying you shouldn't even have came here. Anyway, cat.
Countries, I know there are many refugees going there, but yet, what you have to understand that Allah has made it very clear cut. That if you are born in that country, then you have option migrate or not. Migration is the best, number one. If you cannot follow your deen, it becomes the fard. If you can follow your deen, it becomes mustahab. Unless you are oppressed or weak or have no means, then it's permitted. I know many guys today from USA who want to come to Malaysia. I don't want to take their name because they may not have told to others. They spoke to me on one-to-one level and they want to migrate to a Muslim country. And as I said in my earlier answer, one of the best Muslim countries to live today amongst all the Muslim countries, Malaysia. There are negative points, but alhamdulillah, as a whole, it is the best available. Most of the guys that I know of, they know when I also go to give lectures, the person may be a president of an Islamic organization, but we know that his parents come and tell us, oh, the person is involved in these wrong activities, these haram activities, he has got so many girlfriends, he does zina. That's not known to the world. Zina is very common. So the person.
Okay. Another thing, I'd have to agree with Sheikh also on this is that even when I went to Malaysia, me and another brother, may Allah bless that brother, we realized, mashallah, Malaysia is a good country from that perspective, good infrastructure. So if you're from the West and you want to have that infrastructure or you want to have that lifestyle, For sure, Malaysia has that. And then good food, man, and the most few of the best people. I mean, I'm talking about like people who are so soft and so have such beautiful hearts. They're very respectful towards everybody who comes. The only thing which I have to be blunt here, because I was in KL, Kuala Lumpur. I didn't like the fact that a lot of big restaurants were non halal. So they didn't have halal meat and stuff. You had to order halal meat like a week in advance. And we're like, what? Like we're talking about no, we're not talking about your average restaurant. No, we're talking about like big restaurant hotels, like so big hotel restaurants and like your 5 stars and stuff like that. So um, yeah, I mean Malaysia, good option.
Percentage of Muslims living in Western country doing zina is multiple times more than living in a Muslim country. You cannot compare. There are sins in the Muslim countries, but the level in the non-Muslim countries is much higher. I know many dais who want to leave. There are few dais who promote and say, oh, I'm very happy and because of America I've become a good Muslim. All this is nonsense. They don't know the Quran
Yeah, he's destroyed so many of the compassionate Muslims.
well. They talk
Yeah.
about the Quran, but according to me, don't they know the verse of this Quran? And the context was Muslims living in non-Muslim land of Surah Nisa, chapter 4, verse number 97. Where Allah says, if you live among the mushrikeen, you will go to hell. It is very clear cut. How can they say, how can they misguide the people by saying, oh, America is very good, it has changed my life. What you should do? I am thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even staying in America, Allah has saved me. This should be a da'i.
Alhamdulillah.
Not promoting America. For what? The person which is against the Muslim, the country which is against the Muslim as a whole, how can you promote such a country? So these dais have actually, I don't agree with them at all. But they are very few. In percentage wise, a very small number. But the majority of the dais, even today, when I meet them on a personal level, they would love to migrate. And some of them are staying because, okay, they want to convey the message, no problem. That's accepted in Islam. But for a Muslim to
Dawah.
migrate from a Muslim country to non-Muslim country, this, according to the scholars, is not permitted except for education for the particular time or for being a full-time dai. Hope that answers the question.
Brother, that's a very good question. Brother converts. Hope that answers the question. I love it. Okay, now I wanted to talk to you guys about a few of these things, and very important um, to discuss these things in detail because there's a lot of you guys out there who have brought this conversation, and if you know me personally, then you have obviously brought up this conversation, and I'm a big discuss like I discussed this in detail with you guys. So, Kat, we need to understand a few things, okay? So some people have brought up some points about, oh, my cousins in back home Pakistan or in the Middle East, they do all these things. Listen, you come from an elitist background, right? You guys are from the background of money. When you come from the background of money, many people in the eastern side, yes, they are a problem, but they're the 1% or they're 2% or they're the top 5% that are the problem that have left a lot of religion, right? Or they became secular, or if they've been became completely indulged into drugs. But I'll even tell you one more thing. Even that one man who is deeply indulged into drugs in Pakistan or whatever it is, his iman might be more stronger than yours. He will die on La ilaha illallah no matter what. But you here as a Muslim in the West have religious crisis every other week, almost every other day. You do minor shirk almost every other day. But that guy who's deep indulged into drugs in the East will die on La ilaha illallah more more like on its perspective of taqwa than you guys, and it's true. Because I'll tell you, I met many people when I was in Pakistan or when I was in traveling. They always used to say one thing, brother, I may sin. They should see me and I pray and whatever. I wouldn't, go to shisha lounge, whatever. They're like, brother, I may sin, but I will never question the oneness of Allah. And what is the greatest sin? Shirk. So they'll stay away from that. Everything is forgivable except that, right? But I've met so many very high-end religious dais. I mean, this is also came out about some really big compassionate imams in America who are questioning the oneness of Allah. Imagine that. These are the scholars, and they're having issues with crisis when it comes to taqwa. How are you protected? How is your child gonna be protected? How is your child's child gonna be protected? Let me bring up the second point. Your kid comes to you and says, "I want to leave Islam. I don't believe in astaghfar. I don't. Even me say, whatever. Like, I want to leave Islam. What are you gonna do? What is it that you can do potentially in the West? Tell me. Nothing. Nothing at all. They will go, and I know people that have. I know people that have. So I'm just saying, there's these discussions that have to happen in a more, oh, I look like a little shuggy, eh? That need to happen in a more of a realistic perspective, and these discussions have to happen. So Jazakallah khair to Sheikh and Dr. Zakir Naik. May Allah bless him, give him the highest place in Jannah. We can't. He's a man of knowledge beyond our imagination. I mean, he's converted probably hundreds of thousands. May Allah bless him. Um, so yeah, I hope you guys like this video. Let me know what you think about this. Put in the comments. And two, if you guys watched to this point, there's gonna be a link potentially in the description if you want to join a Telegram group for Hijrah. Like, I'm just gonna try to get a lot of Western brothers, and if you're non-Western, then I think you can join, but it won't be of much value to you. Where I think I'm gonna start a discussion about Hijrah, because there's a lot of brothers here in the West who are talking about it, and they're interested in it. And maybe we'll start off with a small community of 5, 10, 20, 15 people, and then we'll just kind of grow. And I know brothers who have actually done it to Mecca and Medina, who have moved permanently to Mecca and Medina, who have moved permanently to Pakistan, who have moved permanently to Dubai, who have moved permanently to other countries like Malaysia. And maybe I can try to add them in there too, inshallah, if they got the time. Can hope you guys like this video. Take care of yourself. Like, share, subscribe. Share this with all of your Muslim brothers and sisters. Everybody who's been talking about the current immorality increase within the West, share this with them. Honestly, share this with them, because they might benefit you. Maybe their kids may not leave Deen, and it might be because of Wallah alam, Allah knows best, because of you guiding them in that manner through this video or some other way. Khair, Habibi, take care of yourself. As always, Assalamu alaikum.